Last weekend, I helped with a confirmation retreat. And one of the activities that the young people were able to do is some of them had to dress up with various costumes, and then the others, and that included myself, were judges. And so one would come out and explain who they were, why they chose that costume, and we would judge them accordingly. But it was quite funny. One young boy came out, and he was clearly pregnant, at least from what we could see, but he had to tell us that he was not just pregnant, he was really pregnant. He said that he was 10 months pregnant. You know, in our gospel reading, Mary is pregnant, and the situation is a little bit messy because she's not quite fully married to Joseph. And so Joseph wants to uphold her dignity, but he also wants to uphold the law, which is why he dismisses her quietly, because adultery could result in death. And so Joseph doesn't want this. Now, this is one way to look at it. The other way to look at it, or another way to look at it, is that Joseph feels unworthy to be the father of this child. It's too much for Joseph. So really this dream is about encouraging Joseph that God will make you worthy. And so often, you know, none of us is really worthy to enter the waters of baptism. None of us is worthy to receive Eucharist, and yet it's God that makes us worthy of these two great sacraments, or any sacrament that we celebrate. Now, in the text, it says that Jesus will come and forgive people of their sins. And so sometimes we narrow this down for the purpose why Jesus came. Yet the purpose why Jesus was born among us is more than just that. You know, in John's gospel, Jesus says that Jesus came to bring us life and bring us life in abundance. You know, it is a gift to be alive. But you know, if that's all we focus on, we miss out on sharing the life with our eternal God. And Jesus came to show that God wants to share in our lives by becoming human. But also he came to reveal that we are adopted children and we receive all the rights and privileges as the Son of God. And as the letter to the Romans says, the same Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead dwells in each of us. You know, not only is God for us and God journeys with us, but God is within us. And also, you know, Jesus came and was born among us to enlighten us or to transform us. Hopefully the gospel, you know, whatever gospel we meditate and pray with each and every day transforms us, you know, because each day we are in need of that ongoing conversions to become more and more like our brother Jesus. And so really the motivation of all this we could draw from John 3:16 is Jesus, you know, loves the world, loves us, and that was the motivation that captures all these different purposes of the incarnation. And what a blessing that is. In our first reading from the book of the prophet Isaiah, we have this great promise. But Ahaz, you know, he seems to be making a good response. He doesn't want to put God to the test. But really, he doesn't want to trust in God. You know, Syria and Israel are kind of knocking on the door of Ahaz's kingdom, and Ahaz chooses to side with Assyria rather than God. But once again, God will take the initiative. And you know, this great prophecy is really realized in the person of Jesus. But as the second reading points out, you know, that Jesus is more than a historical figure. You know, the name Jesus Christ emphasizes Jesus as the historical figure, but it also emphasizes the eternal Christ. You know, there's a connection with Jesus to David. Now, David wasn't even on the radar to be the king. Jesse dismissed him as a possibility to be king, and yet God chose David. And so often in the Old Testament, God chooses the unlikely to carry out God's task. Often because they're open to that. And aren't those the same people who are open to receiving Jesus is the ones who were least likely. And so we have to continually humble ourselves to accept Jesus Christ. But let's not lose sight of the eternal Christ. You know, I love the Colossians hymn, through whom all things were made. He holds creation all together in himself. And so, in other words, Jesus Christ is more than the historical figure. And so it gives us a bigger perspective on who Jesus Christ really is. So as we gather around the table, Lord, once again, Mother Church gives birth to Jesus Christ upon the altar to nourish us, to feed us, so that we can continuously be transformed. We can receive this life, and we can give life to others. We can continue to be instruments of peace in our world, instruments of God's healing presence for others.